Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. I am here with Celina Shands. How are you, Celina?
Hi, Angela. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you so much for joining us today. So Celina was born and raised in North Carolina and approaches business like a true Southerner. Relationships first, business second. She is the founder and CEO of Full Capacity Marketing, a 20-plus-year-old national consultancy specializing in brand storytelling and strategic communications for those in the workforce, education, and entrepreneurship sectors. As a former Female Athlete of the Year, Celina attributes her love of sports as a driving force and passion that she puts into every single project. FCM's customer-centric model has earned the company more than 75 global awards for its customers who have built sustainable and relevant brands across the nation. A professed horse lover, Celina spends her free time at the barn riding and working on her equestrian skills and recharges with the love of her life, who she met during the COVID-19 pandemic on Bumble. That's amazing. You're the one person who found love on Bumble.
I know, right? I know, but it's fantastic. That's a whole other podcast in itself.
That's fantastic. Well, and I find that dating is challenging, and maybe it's not for you. You're in San Diego. Maybe it's different there, but I have yet to find very many quality people out in the dating world. And
it's a needle in a haystack,
sure
but I swear when it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yep.
So
this is true. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. So, so tell me a little bit about what got you started into the marketing and education sector.
I wish I could say, it's just like a straight path, a straight shot. I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, and it really wasn't like that. It was quite a journey to get here. Lots of twists and turns. I think, society talks about, we're going to go to school, we're going to go to college, we're going to get married, have children. There's a lot that society places on it. My journey was nothing like that. It was all over the map, literally, because I ended up in California. It was just a long journey to get here. I moved from North Carolina to California. Actually, Hurricane Diana hit in 1985. You're from Georgia, so you know all the hurricanes that run through the South, right?
Right.
And I just said, gosh, I've got to get out of here. It's been a long road through college and everything else, other challenges I had. So I picked up and moved to actually the Bay Area when I was 25 years old. And I had $50 to my name. I went out and bought a new car the day before the hurricane hit. I packed my stuff and just left. And I said, okay, there's got to be something more to life than here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it kind of all got started. But my love of sports really, it got me into sports medicine first. That was my first company. I've had 3 companies. I've sold one, and then I've had full capacity marketing for over, now it's going on 21 years. But the first one was in sports medicine because of my love of sports.
That's awesome.
So I just think that it's just so interesting to hear how people's lives went. And I bet you if your listeners look back on their lives, they go, oh, now I know why that happened. That got me to this job or this place or this spot in my company or wherever it is. So I'm a big believer in going for the ride. It's like you don't know where it's going to take you sometimes, but it doesn't have to be all kind of mapped out. And mine certainly was not.
Yeah, I always say when somebody invites you on an adventure, say yes. Whatever it is, say yes. Just say yes and do it. So, so you have a passion for sports. So tell me about sports in high school and being Female Athlete of the Year. And there's some incredible accomplishments there.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was by necessity that I really got into sports. Like so many people in the country, I grew up in an alcoholic family,
Mm-hmm.
and that really spurred my need to be out of the house because it was not a good environment for me. So I always found ways to stay out of the house.
Uh-huh.
And my sister, who I call my Shiro sister, we always have these
Oh,
pivotal
I
people
love
in our
that.
lives, right? She's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my gosh. She really raised me. She took care of me. She got her worker's permit at age 15 and make sure that I had clothes and food and everything. And she's the one that noticed, she goes, you've got some athletic prowess, and I'm going to get you into this small private school because an education is where you need to be.
Yeah.
So I played everything in that little school, from basketball, softball, volleyball. I mean, you name it. It just kept me out of
Wow.
the house and helped me channel that energy into something really positive. Plus, you meet your extended family out there in sports, right? Your
Right. Right.
colleagues and your coaches. And so I was fortunate enough to get a basketball scholarship to play in college, and that is what enabled me to go to school and first start out in business and marketing. I just felt that
Wow.
was a good skill set that was transferable across all industries. You have to learn how
Mm-hmm.
to talk about what you're doing, be excited about what you're doing. And so I went down that pathway. And then when I moved to California, I ended up, because of my love of sports, getting a master's in sports medicine. And so my first company was called Life at Its Peak, and it helped doctors integrate sports medicine as part of their business model, multidisciplinary clinics. But
Yeah.
when managed care hit, on the scenes, the reimbursement rates weren't that great. So I had to go and downsize some of the clinics and then reinvent myself, right? Like so many
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs, it's
So
like,
many.
okay,
Yes.
well, this is a dead end. Like I was reading about your company during COVID, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
you had those 5 months of like, oh gosh, how are we going to reinvent? How are you going? But that's what an entrepreneur does. And I used to hide my thorns about my alcoholic family and just other things that I was very sort of embarrassed about. But now I think I've learned to embrace them and open up more about them, because I think it really shapes who you are and helps you make some decisions to get out of that pathway as a motivator, kind of.
Absolutely.
So and I think it's made me a better leader, just opening up and sharing my different stories and trials and tribs, because boy, nobody gets there on a straight path. Nobody gets there
Mm-hmm.
easily either. It's hard work having your own
Yeah.
company.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. Well, and I can't remember who I was listening to recently, but they said they don't fear for the entrepreneurs who have been through hardship. They fear for the ones who haven't been through hardship.
Yes.
Because if you
Yes.
haven't been through hardship as an entrepreneur, you're not going to know how to handle it when it comes at you, and it's going to come at you big, right? And so, take those little moments of grind, of grit, and place them appropriately in your business and in your life, and use that as fuel to continue growing. And I agree with you. I mean, our childhoods, they really shape who we are, good or bad, right? And so those experiences, though, are what allow us to have that ability to get through tough moments in our business, and strategically be creative when it comes to, okay, I can find a way out of this. I've been through worse, right? And so when you have that
Yes.
mindset of I've been through worse, then little things like, in your business don't throw you off so much.
Yeah, you don't sweat the small stuff. It seems big
No.
at the time, and
Right.
I'm really learning, I think, how to look at mistakes or maybe contracts we weren't awarded as, okay,
Huh.
well, that's not a mistake. It was time well invested because I learned some things. As long as I can keep learning now and really try to find the right fit in
Right.
terms of the customer and our company and that, then it makes life so much better all the way around.
Right. Yeah.
And when I look back, I go, oh, that's why that contract fell through. Or,
Uh-huh.
there were things that you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I really trust a lot that the universe has my back as I move through my business as well. So, how they say, oh, business life is one, your personal life is another. I don't see that. I see it all kind of mushed together. How about you?
Yeah, well, I think as entrepreneurs, our business is one of our family members.
It
Like
is.
I look at it as my other child, and so or my spouse. It depends on how what the day looks like, and so
Right.
it really is. And for us, it's very hard to say, okay, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be done with this, and then I'm going to move on, and it's family time, and we don't time block as well as people who have a 9 to 5 job. It's just as different. It's just different. There's a different
Yes.
fuel and a different passion for what you're doing and a different level of commitment.
It's very interesting you say your business is your child because I remember growing up in North Carolina, one of the reasons I left was that I got a lot of pressure to like be married and have children. And I
Mm-hmm.
chose to go a different path. At my child, I said, I'm going to California. I'm going to start a company, and that company is going to be my child for a while,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah. Oh,
here we
yeah.
are 21 years or however many years later. Um, and it really does feel like that when you're an entrepreneur. It's a
Yes.
labor of love, though. It's a labor of
Mm-hmm.
love. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. Well, and it's a level of commitment that you just don't get if it's your day job, if you're calling it
Yes.
your day job. It's a different level of commitment. And when people always say, oh, so what do you do for fun? I'm like, I work. Like, is that weird? Like, I actually enjoy it. Like, I feel like that's just, I don't know, like this is what I actually enjoy doing. So
Exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
hmm so okay, so you had sports as a great foundation. So do you think sports have helped you in your business, in running a business?
Oh, absolutely. It has because it teaches you teamwork. I think of my folks in my company as my extended family.
Yeah.
Everybody's a family member to me. It's probably because I came
Hmm.
from a broken one and I just had my sister, right?
Yeah.
So those relationships, when you read my bio, I just go, yep, that still rings true for me. And
Yeah.
so it really teaches you, camaraderie, and how you can help each other make things better. So one of the things that I believe in is that if you have diverse thought on any project, on any strategy, within any business, your end product and service is going to be much better. And
Hmm.
we have a lot of diversity in our team. Folks have backgrounds like I have, also folks who have been homeless, people who
Wow.
have are immigrated in, have, just all types of people because in our company, we help workforce and education organizations recruit those underserved populations to get them into training programs, education, and even
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. So I think having that sports background is kind of like you learn teamwork, you learn how to lean into your strengths and have
Yeah.
your team members help you out with your weaknesses. And so all of those lessons, I think, hold true for having a successful company. You've got to kind of carry that theme through and see the value in everybody in the company.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think teamwork and growth and strategy, so much can be learned from sports. And when you can implement those same lessons into your day-to-day business and you create that team environment and working hard, and yeah, I think there's a lot of great correlation between sports and
Mhm.
successful businesses. So then you start this business, and you're really kind of your marketing is a little bit more unique because you kind of focus on education. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So after life at its peak kind of ended, I'm like, what am I going to do? Right. And
Right.
so I ended up taking a job in between these companies. I've also taken jobs that build my skill sets.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to start a marketing company. I thought that's kind of mission focused. And I took a job with the County of San Diego, their Health and Human Services Agency, because I needed news media experience. And all of a sudden, I was thrown in this world like, oh my gosh, we got an E. coli breakout in San Diego. What do we
Oh,
do?
geez. Yeah.
All this kind of things. It was really great training. And after about 4 years of that, I got recruited into this workforce agency. And there are a bunch of them across the nation that get their funding from Department of Labor,
Hmm.
and they do a lot of training and helping people with unemployed, just underserved populations kind of lift up. And I really fell in love with that. I thought this is really great, and I need to start a company based on workforce and education, because it was so instrumental in my own life in lifting me up out of my situation.
Yeah.
So I got really passionate about it. So, we're a traditional marketing and communications company. I think rather than tell you what I do, I'd rather tell you what my customers do and how we
Yeah.
help them.
Okay.
Um, so one story I can share with you, which I just marvel at that. We were working with an adult education school, which is probably
Okay.
the best kept secret ever. They help folks with English language, adult basic education, even
Mm.
career education, like learning a skill, an office skill, and things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the organizations that we represented was working with a homeless lady who was living in a shelter, and they
Okay.
were helping her learn English and get her high school credential. Okay, like a high school equivalency is what they call it.
Okay.
She didn't have a laptop, so she kept missing classes. And then, the instructor kind of probed her and found out, wow, she's homeless. He went out and partnered with a tech company, got her a laptop. She finished her high school equivalency. She also got skills-based training, and she's working in an office now out of the storage unit and making
Wow.
$60,000 a year.
Good for her.
So
Wow.
our job with those kind of organizations is to help find those kind of folks. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of the people in my company are those folks. We've been there. We've
Mm.
had those barriers. I myself have been, almost on public assistance. I survived a domestic violence incident, almost a
Mm.
near rape. All these things kind of like, living paycheck to paycheck. So I think the power of education to me is so inspiring, and we help those organizations find those folks and get them into training and really help them build a wonderful life. And many of them have gone into entrepreneurship, and then so we help the entrepreneurship side of the house as well. It's
Hmm.
just wonderful. I can't believe I get to do this every day. And it's the stories that are generated from our customers that make me want to kind of keep going.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that because I think if you can educate someone, especially a woman, she contributes so much back to her community, and it's just by nature. If you give a woman
Yes.
education and you can empower her and give her resources, she turns those
Yes.
resources into resources for everyone, right? So she, it's women have the ability to really rise up a community, and it starts with education.
Absolutely. Education provides choices, as does money.
Hmm.
People say, oh, money's a bad thing. No, it's not.
Yeah,
Money's a
yeah,
fantastic thing. It's a
yeah,
byproduct of having a mission in the world and being driven by that mission and being successful with that mission. Is just a byproduct of that. But it is energy that comes in and helps a woman get out of a situation,
yeah.
um, and find those resources. One of
Hmm.
our national campaigns right now is hashtag Move Ahead with Adult Ed. And people can go to moveaheadwithadulted.org and find their local adult education provider and what they do for free classes or cost effective training, which is fantastic. And so
Yeah.
start anywhere. My message to women is, doesn't matter where you are in your journey, just start somewhere and try to gain additional skills.
Hmm.
Skills are the way to go, not necessarily degrees, even though that was my pathway,
Yeah,
because I got the scholarship and whatnot. But there are so many successful entrepreneurs who have
yeah.
credentials, right? And,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I was thinking about my nephew who's in North Carolina. I have three nephews, beautiful nephews, and they all took different pathways. One of
Yeah,
them said, I don't want to go to a 4-year college. I want to really take a look at community college and build some stackable credentials. Well, he's the one doing the best out of all three. He started a
really.
advanced manufacturing company. I said, hey, how's it going? Oh, my billables were 30K last month. Oh,
Wow.
okay. Good
Good for
job.
him.
And he loved computers, and he leaned into that and said, you know what? I'm going to learn how to make these specific widgets that go on this specific machine that are in high demand. So
Mm.
he has his own commercial property right now, his own business, and he, did not go to the 4-year route.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's
So
so much value in that. And there's so much
yeah,
need because everybody was pushing 4-year college forever and ever and ever. And now that's the expectation. But we're short on mechanics, we're short on pilots, we're
everywhere.
short on, all of the skilled labor that, our country is desperate for right now because
Absolutely.
people are skipping over the trade schools and going to 4-year colleges and you know getting a degree that they're likely not going to use anyway. So
That's
so
it.
that's the
That's it.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what trends are you seeing in adult education right now?
Well, we had the Great Resignation, right?
Uh-huh.
After COVID, where everybody's sort of like, what am I really doing here, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting you were saying, I was looking at research just yesterday on the value of community college, the value of uh, 4-year degree, and
Mm-hmm.
how people are not valuing those degrees like they were in the past. And
Right.
so one of the biggest trends I see is that employers are really looking at, because of the tight labor market, the skill shortages and using skills as the gold standard for hiring versus a degree.
Interesting.
Because, if you think about it as an employer, and you've been there, right? You
Yeah.
want people who are committed, who can show up, who have communication skills and all of that. If they have that, we can train them in the other places.
Mm-hmm.
So the market right now is really in favor of job seekers and students and learners, because employers are taking a hard look at, like, wow, what is my employer brand like? Why would someone want to come and work in this company for
Mm-hmm.
me? And so there's a lot of power right now for that labor market to go in and negotiate for themselves and say, okay, I have this skill set. I'm willing to go to school and do this, and this, and take that initiative and show employers you can really get a foot into a lot of companies right now because of the tight labor market and the skill
Mm-hmm.
shortages.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. And it's also exciting for me because it's forcing employers to take a look at how they build cultures within their organization. How do they do
Right.
teamwork? Um, because I think everybody in an organization has to feel connected to the bigger mission. And if
Yeah.
they don't see that and feel that, then, younger generations will be like, I'm out, I'm tapping out. We have a lot of stickiness in our company. I've had my creative director for over 20 years. I've known him for 30, but
Wow.
he's been with me. So a longevity in the company. And I think it's because the culture we have in terms of valuing diversity and valuing opinion. Because again, I always think so that's changeable when you look at like leadership styles. Well, how do I get people to stay in my company? Well, you value them, right? You
Yeah.
can take a look. I've had a virtual company. Full capacity marketing's been virtual for 21 years. And
Wow.
people say, like, we beta tested WebEx when it came out. I was like,
Wow.
oh yeah. When COVID hit, I was one was like, finally, people are getting
Yeah.
in with Zoom and everything else. I was like,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
But having a hybrid work model, and trusting people, so setting expectations and then trusting people to make those, so they do have a work-life balance. They'll
Mm-hmm.
contribute more. My folks are so productive. I mean, the creative team's like, I can't come up with an idea. Well, go surfing, go to a museum. Like, what do you need to do?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they work all the different hours,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
hours and things like that. So I think it offers a lot of flexibility. So that there's a lot of trends, and then of course AI. So those are all the trends that I'm really tracking right now.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, AI is a huge one. That is going to, I think, change the dynamic for a lot of companies.
I
So
agree. Yes.
interesting. So what do you think about, so as we're going into, you've started a few different businesses. What challenges did you have in starting your multiple businesses?
Where to start,
I
right?
know. I know. Yep.
Well, I wrote an article for the future of work for Authority magazine. I'll send you the link so you can post it up. But
Yeah.
one of the things they asked me to do is do a video on the 5 things I wish someone had told me before I became an entrepreneur.
Mm,
And one of them was, definitely, if you're a woman, don't feel like you have to run a business like a man. And when I say that, it's like, don't get me wrong. I love men. I love the mentorship of men. Some of my best mentors are men. And I think that women have to think about their value in terms of what they bring to the table. We have
Right.
that empathy. We can build cultures. We can build teams. We're great listeners. We find a way to come in that gray area. It's not black
Yeah.
and white, right? Which makes your product even better. So that's one thing is just surrounding your people with great mentors. I couldn't have gotten here without the mentorship of people that I met along the way. So I
Right.
think you've got to, one of the things is let go of the naysayers, or I
Mm.
call them energy suckers. You can feel
Yep.
it like when you meet somebody for the first time, are they going to give you energy or are they going to suck it out of you dry? Right.
Right.
And so those people, and some of those people are probably in your own family. I find that when you start a company, you really have to surround yourself with people who are going to give you good constructive criticism that you
Hmm.
take on and move from, but then you kind of have to leave the rest by the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That would be like one of the best things. I mean, my company, I didn't have a bricks and mortar, right? It was virtual. So it was less risky in some senses because I didn't have to pay rent. I've always worked from home,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of that is like thinking through how can you now get with the hybrid model that's on board or a fully virtual model,
Mm.
because that to me is very powerful. You can cost save, pass that on to your customers so you can be competitive in the
Right.
market and go from there. And I think, part of it being an entrepreneur, another thing is just doing good work.
Uh-huh.
You may have to do some loss leaders and have people take you on, as a company for less of a price to prove yourself. But once you start building those relationships and the results, then it just builds from there. So you got to start
Hmm.
small and just kind of move forward.
I like it. Very nice. Yeah, I do agree with you. And I think those 5 tips are great because as an entrepreneur, it's hard. You feel like you're figuring it all out and you feel like you're the only one.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so, one of the things that I really encourage people to do is find your tribe, find your network of people, because like you were saying, with good advice, make sure you're getting good advice. Sometimes it's really difficult to get advice from family and friends because they're
Absolutely.
looking at it through their own filter, and they mean well in terms of like what they're telling you. They have the best intentions, and they're trying to protect you in many cases, but they're also looking through your situation through their filter, and that can be challenging in terms of like the risk level, the risk tolerance, and looking at the market. So they're looking at it in a way where they want to make sure that they're giving you good advice, but at the same time you've got to take it all with a grain of salt.
You do. I mean, one of those filters is fear or
Yeah.
can be fear. And so that's where it gets tricky because you have to really believe you have a different makeup. You have the tenacity
Right.
to reinvent, to pivot, to be flexible. There always is a way of doing things. It's just connecting in with those right folks. So if you
Hmm.
have a person in your tribe, as you said, who is totally in fear and they're an 8 to 5 makeup, they're in that
Yeah.
kind of mindset
Yeah.
versus going out and taking risks, it doesn't match.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I love, the idea of joining an entrepreneur group, or, finding a circle of others who are starting similar, but maybe not competing businesses. And so just finding your tribe, finding somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, who's also in a similar situation where they can really give you valuable advice, especially that advice where they've already learned the lesson and they can now tell
Mhm.
you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. Those are really, really valuable.
Right, right. And there's free resources too. I'm always about, what are the free
Yep.
resources out there? We're
Yeah.
working right now in doing a campaign for a lot of public organizations in Contra Costa County.
Okay.
And that campaign is going to be called Think Contra Costa. But we did an asset map of the whole community in terms of what are the resources available for entrepreneurs and businesses to help them in growth,
Wow.
especially minority owned businesses. And what we did is we packaged, or we are in the middle of packaging all of those services and having kind of a one-stop shop, if you will. We call it a pop-up business resource center because
Mm-hmm.
there's all these events and everything, but there'll be one single 800 number where a business can call in and say, this is my situation. Where do I need to go?
Yeah.
But you have folks like the small business development centers. They are
Mhm.
fantastic. I used those early on at full capacity marketing when I was getting my, systems put into place. And there are a lot of mentors out there. SCORE is another one. So,
Yeah. Score's great.
look through your community and to find those gems. We're going to try to make it easier in Contra Costa County because it's tough wading through all the public sector and nonprofit help out there,
It is
but it
tough.
is
And
out there.
yeah, it is out there. It's tough because they don't generally have the marketing resources to have great websites that are really informative and up to date, and apps and all the other things that as a commercial enterprise you can put together, but as a,
Right.
publicly funded, organization, you generally lack that sophistication or that funding for marketing. So yeah, it's out there, but you do have to dig a little bit to find it. But there's also great grant programs that
Yes.
people can tap into that I think are really, really valuable, especially as they're getting started. So
Yeah, there's so much out there. But you're right, you do have to dig. We try to help those agencies, by the way, who have poor websites and poor
yeah,
marketing. That's what we
yeah,
do. We're like, okay, you're the best kept secret. Let's not be there.
yeah. Let's not be a secret anymore. so
Exactly.
So, talking about doing stuff like that. So, how do you build a cohesive brand strategy? Like as a company, how do you build a cohesive brand strategy? What advice would you give to listeners?
So great. We're called full capacity marketing because our goal is to work ourselves out of a contract everywhere we go so
That's
that
great.
our customers can be sustainable because branding, marketing, and communications is sometimes an afterthought, and it really
Uh-huh.
needs to be a pillar that is built in straight up in your business planning.
Yeah.
So a lot of what our philosophy is anyway is really looking at what is your positioning in the market? What do you do different and better? So finding your
Yeah.
unique selling proposition and making sure your brand is completely aligned from top to bottom. So what do I mean by that? Once you figure out what you're doing better than
Yeah.
anyone else, and you have that positioning statement, what are you promising to the customers? Do that promise align with your mission, vision, and values? And
Mm-hmm.
then who is it in the market you're really trying to reach? So we spend a lot of time on building out the ideal customer profile because
Mm-hmm.
if you have limited dollars in a small business for trying to get into a growth stage, you really want to narrow the market and select those customers that are likely to purchase your products and services. So
Right.
that takes some market research and really understanding, getting inside their heads. We have a saying over here: if you miss the message, you miss the mark. So
Oh, interesting.
you can do all these tactical things like social media and advertising, digital ads, everything, blogging, you name it, all those tactics, e-newsletters, e-marketing. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
not hitting the right message to those customers, it's going to go straight over their heads. I was reading the other day, this stat blew me away, that depending on what market you're in, you see anywhere between 6 and 10,000 advertising messages every single day. When you think about
Wow.
pop-up, billboards, radio, television, all of that. So
Jeez.
it's not only your competition that you're competing with, it's
Yeah.
the noise in the market. So how do you cut through the noise? That's like
Mm.
the number one thing. Once you get that message tuned in where it's like, oh yeah, that does apply to me, then you can select the right mediums to
Yeah.
in the marketing mix. But so many people just skip over that. They'll say, oh, I've got this product, it's really great, here's the features of it, without really talking benefits focused on
Yeah.
what it does and how you do it differently. And your online footprint, everything has to match up. So if I see you on social media, if I see you on your website or whatever, all of those messages align, and that builds
Mm-hmm.
trust and confidence. Of course, you have to deliver right on that
Yeah.
promise.
Right.
So that's kind of our basic philosophy of diving in, like really growing. And it takes time, it takes energy, but it's well worth it.
Yeah.
97% of our customers are repeat customers.
Wow.
97%. That's a high mark. And
Very.
it's because we do a lot of word of mouth. And it's funny, for my company, I've never really run ads to even
Huh.
after 21 years. It's been speaking at conferences, blogging, being a subject matter expert, and then people will find us that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we see if it's so kind of a no pressure kind of sales pitch, if you will.
I think that's great. No, I think it's great. Well, and I love your idea of narrowing the focus, because like there are some times when I see a major billboard or I see a Super Bowl ad and it's for a niche
Yes.
business, and I think to
Yes.
myself, this is pure vanity. They're doing this out of
Yes.
pure vanity because this is
Exactly.
not their target market. They dropped, thousands of dollars for a little bit of vanity is what it is. Because if your
Exactly.
niche market is, like when I'm driving down the highway and I see a Cracker Barrel up in 2 miles, that's great
Yeah.
advertising. I'm looking for food. It tells me where it's at. I can find it, right? That's great advertising. Same with the gas stations, same with Buc-ee's, whatever it is. Tell me where I can find what I need. But if I'm driving down and there's an ad for an internet service or something that it feels very irrelevant to me in the moment, not only am I going to not remember it, but I'm going to ask, like,
Yeah.
why did you spend that money? It's pure
Why did you
vanity.
spend that money?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really like, instead of doing a kind of a shotgun approach where you're just getting your
Yeah.
message out. Now that can be good for awareness building, but again, it
Right.
has to get to the right target for
Right.
lead generation and really piquing someone's interest. And here's another fun fact for your audience. I'm just filled with fun facts
Yeah,
today.
I love
But
it.
um, it takes anywhere between 8 and 12 touch points to get a prospect to convert. So when you
Interesting.
think about that ad is just one touch point. What are your other touch points? Social media. So
Mm-hmm.
we really have to diversify what that marketing mix is and make sure they're seeing it multiple times. And if you think about
Yeah.
how you buy personally,
Right.
it's that repeat message over and over. And it's like, oh, when that need arises, I'm going to call this company and check them out.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's this whole process of getting those people in your pipeline and nurturing them through
Mm-hmm.
information, not sales, but information that might help them make a decision
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your product and service.
Yeah. Yeah. Add value to them. I always say, if you want to sell me
Absolutely.
something, add value to what I'm doing, and then I'm all
Yes,
ears. Yeah, I agree.
exactly.
Yeah. So I think, with what you do in marketing, especially with the education component, I think adding value is something that should probably come pretty naturally for your organization, in terms of, what you're promoting.
Well, what we're promoting, yes. And,
Yes.
again, we promote workforce education, and then we help entrepreneurs promote their products as well if they're going in
Uh-huh.
that pathway.
Yeah.
But for education, when you look at the trends, as we were talking about earlier, the value of that is going down, because like the cost benefit of it, it's like, okay, I'm going to outlay in all this cash and, have all this debt. Is it
Debt.
really worth
Yeah.
it?
Right.
So positioning more of the career education tracks in community college, positioning adult schools. To me, that's a very important mission because people don't understand their options, or they think,
Mm.
oh, trade school or vocational education, they think
Yeah.
that's less than. Well, it's come a long way. We're working right now with 15 community colleges in the Bay Area, and we rebranded kind of the mechanics world because now everything is electric
Yeah.
hybrid vehicles, right?
Yeah.
Well, their tool belt has been replaced with a computer.
Yeah.
So we call
Yeah.
it next gen auto. And so it's educating the market on what choices are available. That to
Yeah.
me is really exciting because we live in this wonderful country where we can have freedom of choice, and people sometimes don't know their options to improve their situation. And that's what gets me excited. There's so much opportunity out there that people
Yes.
can tap into for workforce training or education that
Yeah.
will help them either as an entrepreneur or as an employee or an
Mm-hmm.
employer, all three, which is to me very
Absolutely.
exciting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and I love that we're talking about options because, I agree with you. It just doesn't make sense. If somebody my son and I are having the debate. He's 16
Well,
on
here you
the,
go.
4-year
Yeah.
school or not. And he's like, if you're going to make me go to get a degree or a certificate, I'm just going to go to culinary school and that way I can at least learn to cook. But he just wants to be an entrepreneur. He's like, I just want to be an entrepreneur, mom. I just want to own my own
Right.
business. And so he I have to give him a little bit of grace because I understand that, and I can't say that my 4-year degree has had any impact in moving the needle in my business. And in fact, I talked about this before in my podcast, but I became so dedicated to graduating on the dean's list. Like I was like, I'm going to graduate on the dean's list of the major 4-year college. And, I worked my butt off. And do you know how many times I've ever been asked what my grade point average
Not
was?
once. Not
Zero,
once.
0 times. So, yeah. So, yeah, that was, had I known, I probably would have enjoyed college a little bit more, but it's quite all right. I think,
Well, yeah, and there's lots of options for your son. In fact, too bad he's not in California because we're working with Chef and Foundation right now on the
oh,
first ever pre-apprenticeship program on scratch cooking, which I didn't know
very
much about
cool.
until I got into it. But
Yeah.
and there's a lot of culinary programs in community colleges too that can lead. We've worked with a lot of them across the
Yeah.
nation, so that can lead to all kinds of opportunities. So at least, and I always
Absolutely.
say, lean into what you're good at and leave
Yep.
the rest and find, get help. When I was in college, I thought just like you, Jesus, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a double major, right? Marketing
Right.
and computer science, because I just at
Hmm.
the time thought that sounded really cool.
Yep.
Well, I had to drop, and this will age me, but Fortran and assembler language, this was taught way back when. I had to drop assembler language twice because I almost failed it. And I
Wow.
got a tutor, and he goes, okay, Celina, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm going to give it to you straight. It was the best advice I ever got. He goes,
Uh-huh.
you got to the right answer. But if you were in the real world, you would have cost that company thousands of dollars. And
Wow.
he goes, you're so good at marketing and storytelling. He goes, I see how you are in your advertising classes and stuff. He goes, stay with that and drop this. So I did.
Yeah.
I dropped it and I was so happy.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to that very first thing I was talking about early at the beginning of the podcast, where it doesn't have to be a straight shot or a
Yeah.
traditional line to things. I think if you're really passionate about something, pursue it. It's like your
Yes.
son, right? Okay, you may
Yeah.
not want to hear this podcast, but it's like, okay, well then
Yeah.
go to culinary school, see how you like it, dip your toe
Hmm.
in before you are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to
Yes.
see if that's because he can get work-based learning opportunities like internships and but the pre-apprenticeship program, work-based learning that will employers will take those kids underneath their wing and say, all right, let's see if this is for you. And that's a
Yeah.
great way to try it out, right?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah. And he's, passionate about cars and, he's like, well, I want to make money at this because there's lots of money to be made, but I love cars. And it's like, well, then do what you love because number one, life is
Yes.
too short to not enjoy what you do every day. And number two, you'll make so much more money if you're passionate about it versus if you're going into it to make money, right? So if your goal is to make
Yes.
money, you'll make a fraction of what you would make if you were passionate about what you were doing to make the money.
That's so
So,
true. It's just that money is a byproduct of your
yeah.
passion.
Yep.
Period. Period. End of story.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give to 18-year-old you?
No, I would definitely, I mean, I love this whole, I keep going back to the concept of mentorship, right?
Yeah.
And there
Hmm.
are so many opportunities, even in high school, talking with their counselors, their career counselors, talking with their local community colleges and saying, okay, I can even take these classes in career
Mm.
education in high school, and they're going to count towards my college, getting into college and my credits. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things like that. So I would explore, get the advice of a career counselor and really figure out what you love to do. Just like the story of my nephew Trip, who now it was billing 30K a month, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because he likes computers. When he was 7, he built a website for people who lost their pets in the neighborhood because he
Wow.
would, I mean, that was his
That's so
thing,
cool.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is it you really love to do? And then go and talk to the counselors, talk to other people who are
Mm,
or in industries that you think you might want to get in, and call them up and talk to them.
yeah.
Say, hey, I really have come in and do a job shadow, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are you taking on interns? Because all that experience, the more they do, rather than sit in a classroom, even though some of that curriculum is contextualized for workplace and all that, many times it's not. So they
Right.
can't really get a feel for what they're doing, right? Or what
Yeah.
they want to do sitting in a
Hmm.
classroom. They've got to get out. A lot of kids are interested in drones right now, really big. They could take that
Yeah.
in all different kinds of directions. So, yeah, stay curious, keep learning, and get good advice, leaning into what you love to do.
Yeah. Excellent advice. So, as women, we often give our power away, whether that's to, take someone's criticism, allow somebody else to take credit for our work. Is there a time that you gave your power away? And if you did, can you tell me about it? And then is there another time where you stepped into your power?
Wow. Yes, that is such a great question. And I'm thinking about it from multiple levels. Remember when I was saying I don't think you can separate your personal and your professional, right? So I had a
Mm,
lot of things that were holding me back personally when I got to California. One was that near rape incident in college that happened where I got away, but I had a lot of post-traumatic stress after
yeah.
that event. Like I'd go on campus and a leaf would rustle. So a lot of
Uh,
growing up the way I did, I was a lot in fear and anxiety. Okay.
mm,
And when I just, it kind of, I ran 3,000 miles away from home. I couldn't have gotten further away from home.
right.
But that was a lonely time when I hit California because I realized I have to fight my demons. I have to find a way because that personally was holding me back professionally. So I
Yes.
found a class, and it was by Dawn Callan, Awakening the Warrior Within. And it was a very physical class where she teaches women to find their voice and find their power. And she teaches you dirty street fighting just to get out of a situation.
Yeah.
They do that for 3 days and they break you down emotionally, physically, and mentally. And then at the end of the third day, you have to go through 4 rounds with a fully padded 6'2" black belt male and take him out using the
Wow.
skills. So the first 3 rounds I lost it. The fourth round I was able to do it. But anyway, long story short, that was a pivotal moment in my life because from that point on, everything changed for me. It was like I no longer had fear.
Wow.
So part of going into business, I think, is really taking an honest look at you, how are you holding yourself back and how
Mm,
can you overcome it? Now, that class happened to be it for me. What are other ways? Some people find it through meditation, through church, through counseling, through like what's really holding you back and being honest with that. But from that point on, it just led me to many different places. I find, my bigger mission in my company is to help women in business, and I don't care if
mm,
they're my own customer. We'll be in a meeting, and I'll notice a woman shuts down with her voice. I will call her up after the meeting and say, "Hey, Carol, do you mind if I talk to you woman to woman?"
wow.
And she usually says yes. And I said, this is just my intuition here talking. I could be wrong. And let me know if you're uncomfortable with this, but I would love to talk to you about it. I noticed that at this point in the meeting, you had all these ideas up to this point, and then this incident happened, and I felt shut down. And I hated to
Wow.
see that because you have such great ideas. Am I off the mark here? And usually she'll say, no, you're right on point. And I go,
Wow.
where does that come from? And so we start dialoguing as women as to where that comes from to work through that situation and maybe what could she do the next time. Now, this is
Hmm.
not part of my job. I'm in
Right.
marketing, right? But I
Right.
think as women, we have to help each other out. We got to
Yes.
watch because when one wins, we all win. So, and then she goes, yeah, I'll try that the next time. I said, well, I don't know if it'll work. What do you think will work? So it's just kind of a
Mhm.
collaborative session. And I think that's really important that we recognize when we do have our power and are able to speak it. And I always say in soft power, we don't have to go in there with a club. We can just
Yeah.
simply speak the truth. You don't have to be aggressive. And then, take a look, be observant when other women you feel are not in that space. How could you help that person? Because you'll
Yeah.
help yourself by helping that person because it's a collaborative kind of conversation, right? So, yeah, and I'm trying to build that culture here, always try to build it internally.
Hmm.
I'll come into a meeting and say, okay, here's the project. Here's my idea. Now let's rip it up.
Yeah, really.
How
Yeah,
can
yeah.
we make it better, right?
Hmm.
And so I just think it's a long-term, day-by-day process. But I think as women, that's how we can change the culture in our environment of being valued.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. Well, I love that, and I think one of the things that we can do to help other women is help them to have a voice. And like
Yeah.
you were saying is, and that's one of the reasons why this podcast was started was let's figure out how to have a voice. Let's give each other the opportunity to step into your power and have a voice. And yeah, and bravo to you for doing that, unleashing the power, because I'm sure it was very, very emotional and draining, but no doubt very pivotal.
Yes, and right back at you. I love this whole concept of the podcast. I was reading about how, this really pulled at your mission in life. And
Hmm.
I just love that because I think at the end of the day, we're just all here to try to help each other get to the next step. Our
Right.
journey never ends. It never
Hmm.
ends. It's like I'm still learning at my age and
Yeah.
all these lessons and everything. Yes, I've
Yeah.
learned quite a bit. And I never want that yearning to go away. And I look to other women leaders to help me figure out how I can be a better leader. How can I,
Yeah.
in my own little space in the world, make a difference, not only through the daily work, but how I interact with other people as
Mm.
well.
Yeah.
And to me, women are wonderful role models for that. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And the podcast as well. I've listened to so many of them, and their
Yeah.
stories are just remarkable.
Well, they say if you want to go far, you go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. And for me, I think we should go far, right? We have going
Yes.
fast. Yeah, sure. We could jump on, we could rise to the top and, what it was Mark Zuckerberg say, go fast and break things. Like we could do that way, but it's not sustainable, right? So I would
Uh,
rather us align and go far together. So yeah, I think that that's important. So I've really, really enjoyed this, Celina. You're so inspiring and I love your story and I love all of your great advice. But one more question. What do you wish more people knew?
wish more people knew about their options to feel empowered through
Yeah.
education and skills.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
the vision for the company, and I think about it every day, and I guess it's my personal vision too, is that we live in a world where everyone wakes up wanting and yearning to go to work and
Yeah.
contribute because of their unique skill sets.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
because just think how amazing that would be, if everybody loved what they did and felt they were contributing in
Yeah.
their own way, it would be such an amazing world. And I think things would shift. So
Yes.
that's the vision.
I love it. Well, bravo to you for everything that you've done. And you guys can't see this unless you're on YouTube, but she has a ton of awards behind her. And I am just so inspired by that. So congratulations on all of your incredible achievements. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your gift that you're giving to people in terms of marketing and education and, helping people find their voice and also helping people find their skill set. Because I agree with you. If we can create a workforce of passionate, empowered people, I think so much would change. So
Absolutely.
good
Well,
for
right
you.
back at you, Angela. Yeah, it's
Thank
just
you.
been wonderful talking with you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And how can people find you?
They can find us on fullcapacitymarketing.com. And
Okay.
if you want to, and by September, we'll have our EFCM Learning Hub up and running, where we're going to be doing online classes for entrepreneurs and those in workforce and education, all about marketing and communications. Yeah.
I love
so
that.
They can check it out.
Very cool. Well, good. All right. Well, and again, you guys can also find her at prettypowerfulpodcast.com. We'll have all of her links so that you can reach out and connect with Celina online. So thank you so much, Celina Shands. You've been a pleasure, and I've really, really enjoyed this.
Back at you, Angela. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Everybody have an amazing day today. And please tune in for the next episode. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.